Welcome to the Love Lab Podcast, a safe and fun place to get real and learn about sex. Whether you're a man or woman, single or couple, this is the show for you. I am your host, Kevin Anthony, and I am here to guide you to go from good to amazing in the bedroom and your relationships. All right, welcome back to the Love Lab Podcast. This is episode 331, and it's titled How to Strengthen Your Pelvic Floor Muscles for Better Sex. So we're going to be talking today about, you may have heard it called Pompoir, vaginal gymnastics, pelvic floor strengthening. There's lots of different terms that are used for this. But basically what we're going to be talking about is how a woman can learn to not only strengthen the muscles in her vagina, but learn dexterity, learn control over them so that she can use them to have better sex. And obviously this makes a difference to the feeling that the man has. And we're going to get into this in the conversation, but there are really benefits and reasons why the woman wants to do it that go far beyond just pleasing her man. So I kind of want to set that straight from the beginning. If you're coming here and you're like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't care about that. It's like, trust me, you want to learn this for your own benefit. I can honestly say from my own personal experience that all of the women that have been the best lovers I've ever had knew how to do this, whether they learned it or they just, some women actually kind of instinctively know how to do it. Those have always been the best lovers that I've had. And at this point in my life, I actually would not continue to be long-term lovers with a woman who didn't know how to do this, because it is that spectacular. Okay, enough of the intro. Let me break for a short word from my sponsor, Power and Mastery 3.0. Power and Mastery 3.0 is the latest version of the popular men's sexual mastery course. If you are struggling with erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, or simply want to increase your skills in the bedroom, then Power and Mastery is for you. Join the exclusive club of men who have taken their sexual performance into their own hands and become sexual masters. Mastering your sexuality is a key component to becoming the man she has always dreamt of and craves. Don't leave your sexual performance up to chance or the throw of the dice. Become a sexual master today by going to powerandmastery.com and joining the exclusive club of men who have taken their destiny into their own hands. That's powerandmastery.com. That is where we get to teach the men all the tricks and tools and techniques to last longer and be a better lover. But today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the women. And I have with me to talk about this today, Belle Lorenzo. She's an entrepreneur, women's sexual health advocate, and the author of the best-selling book, The Gohddess Method. Her unique science-based approach is designed to help women master vaginal gymnastics, the practice of exercising pelvic floor muscles to develop skills that enhance female pleasure, boost libido, and amplify orgasms. Welcome to the show, Belle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love the hot take at the beginning. I would not be lovers with a man, with a woman who isn't able to do this. I was like, wow, okay.
That honestly, that is the truth. So I'm
wow.
As my listeners know, I'm 50 now, but somewhere around age 30, I want to say. Yeah, somewhere around that age, I had a lover who just knew how to do this. And the first time I was feeling this from her, I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever.
Yes, all right.
And I've been very fortunate that pretty much every lover I've had since then, at least all of the major ones, including my wife, all had this skill. And it's just become part of my world now. Like, I think and people will have a better understanding of what we're talking about later. But I just think, like, when penetrating a woman, when my penis is in her vagina, if I'm not feeling anything happening in there other than obviously the energetics, I'm like, something's wrong. This is not going the way it's supposed to be going. So yeah, it really kind of is that important to me, honestly.
It's so interesting. It reminds me of that Chris Rock stand-up. He goes, men cannot go backwards when it comes to sex. Like once a man has experienced something with a woman, he will not go back. He needs to have another woman who can either do that or add to the conversation. But they cannot possibly go backwards. I find that so funny and so true with this stuff.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's kind of true with anything. It's like if you reach a certain level of, knowledge and intelligence, you don't want to go back to being ignorant, right? If you reach a certain level of consciousness, you don't want to go back to being unconscious.
Oh, you've been red pilled by Pompoir.
That's right, I have been.
The Pompoir matrix, and it's over now.
It's anything. It's like you if you're used to eating, crappy food, and then you get to experience good quality, homemade organic food that was made with love, that kind of thing. It's like you don't want to go back to that stuff. So it's the same thing here. Once you've had the sort of gourmet sex, as they say, you don't want to go back to fast food sex.
Absolutely. And I think this is a great segue into what you were describing at the beginning of why women would want to do this for themselves. And we'll obviously explain everything about this, but a big component of not just how she's going to please you and how it's going to feel really intense, because obviously she's going to have all this texture to her vagina and everything's going to feel really amplified because of the friction and the muscle that she's built. It's also going to feel so good for her that her approach to sex is going to be quite different. As you spoke about, this improves female libido a lot. Like women who consistently train with this, with our method or with their own methods of training Pompoir, a lot of them come to us because they want their libido back. A lot of them, that's their main concern. And this has the pelvic floor training. Research shows time and time again how it boosts libido completely naturally because it increases blood flow to the genital region, it increases psychological factors, and obviously you're essentially becoming more optimal at drawing blood there and making yourself more aroused. And as you increase that loop of arousal, you increase the loop of orgasm, and that makes things a whole lot better. So if you're with a lover who really enjoys sex, that obviously makes the whole experience better for men as well. So yeah, it's and
great. Why would you want to be with a lover who doesn't enjoy sex?
Right.
Life is too short for that.
Yes. Preach.
Okay. So we got a lot to cover here. Let's dive in. But before we go even further into why a woman would want to do this and some of the benefits to that, I think we kind of need to take a step back and talk to the audience a little bit about your story and kind of what got you here, what led you to this, because I think it's very similar to either where a lot of women are today or where they were. And so I think they'll be able to relate to that and kind of really understand how you got here.
So it's really interesting because I came to this from a very different perspective than most of our students come to this, which is most of our students come because they want to feel more during sex. They want to feel penetration more intensely, or perhaps they don't even orgasm from penetration. They don't even like it. They're like, I understand the clitoris. I understand all of that. And that's very pleasurable. And foreplay is fantastic. But when it comes to actual sex, that's something that I do for him. He enjoys it. I don't really enjoy it. And that's something that we always focus on and that Pompoir really changes. For me, what happened was quite interesting because I was the higher libido person in the relationship, and I was the person who really liked and enjoyed sex. But my partner, and this is something that we don't often talk about because the consensus is men always want to have sex all the time, constantly. My partner had some trauma in his life before being with me. And that was driving him to not want sex as often. And I thought it was a problem with me. And I thought, how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do? And we tried a lot of different things to sort of see if we could sort of resparkle that in him. And in all my research, because I really love this man, I wanted to make sure that this was, fixed, not just for me, but for him to enjoy this again, right? So I thought, okay, the best way I can do this is to bring something new to sex. There's got to be something that he doesn't automatically, his brain doesn't associate with the sex that he's had in the past. Therefore, it triggers a completely new development and a new association in his brain. So that's in my research where I found Pompoir, and I found all these stories of women who, throughout time were able to manipulate their vaginas to twist their men inside of them. And Cleopatra was able to do this with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and Helen of Troy and all of these different women throughout history and all of these legends, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I want to learn how to do. Except there was no actual guide on it. There was no one teaching you how to do it. It was a lot of mystical, esoteric knowledge and legends, but nobody was giving you the step by step. So I was like, okay, it was amidst the pandemic. So I was like, okay, I have a lot of free time. I'm staying at home. I can't even go to the gym. And because I really liked fitness and I was doing my own body weight training at the time, I was learning about muscle building and muscle fitness and fitness components overall, and how body weight exercises can help you build muscle, because I didn't have access to a gym because we're in the pandemic. So I was like, well, the vaginal muscles cannot possibly be this different or this dissimilar to any other muscles in our bodies. So I started researching through that angle. And I was like, okay, well, how does the pelvic floor actually work? And what's the research that we have on pelvic floor training? And the more I got into that rabbit hole, the more I was like, oh my God, the very few research that we do have on pelvic floor training is overwhelmingly positive. Like every single study, time and time again, shows an increase in libido, an increase in orgasms. There's one study, it's a huge, it's a randomized control trial, I believe, and I think it's hundreds of women. And what they noticed, it's actually a report. What they noticed is that pelvic floor strength was so tied to how much these women wanted to have sex that a strong pelvic floor was predictive of sexual frequency. As in, the stronger your pelvic floor was, then they could easily predict that you were having more sex. So when it was such a huge correlation, I was like, what's going on here? So, okay, clearly strengthening this would help. But how about we go a step further? Because the pelvic floor muscles, they surround the vagina. So it's not just that we have different levels of depth, the muscles surrounding the entrance of the vagina, the muscles in the middle, the muscles at the top near the cervix. We also have the front wall, we have the back wall, we have the right half, we have the left half. So it's surrounded just like our mouth is surrounded by muscles. So how would this work in isolation? So that's when I started sort of developing, trying to move that dexterity. I love that word, because that's the precise word for this. Instead of just doing Kegels up and down and lifting and relaxing, which is usually what we're taught, I was like, well, what if I do that, but only with the right side of my muscles? Okay, what if I do that, but only with the left side? What if I do it only at the front or only at the back? What if I press the walls together rather than lifting up? What if I direct them to the left or to the right? And what if I combine all of these things? And so I started putting together different exercises just to test them out. And as I gained more strength, I decided to try them out in the bedroom. And that's when everything kind of flipped on its head for us. And my partner was very much impressed with that. He likes to say that we were having research sex, because we started having sex and I would ask him, okay, well, what do you feel? And he was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. I'm like, no. What exactly are you feeling right now? Just tell me, what are you feeling? Is this on the left? Do you feel this in the shaft? Do you feel this at the tip? This is great, baby. This is great. Just no. Please tell me specifically. And so it wasn't very helpful in that sense, but things completely shifted for us. Everything felt enhanced. Everything felt, it was almost like there were so many things that he started noticing. It's like, you feel like warmer and tighter, and it feels like there's more, and it feels like, it's almost like, how a lot of men suffer from the death grip syndrome, and they're so accustomed to just their own hands that nothing else feels like texture to them. That was something that he was like, look, this could work for a lot of guys, because there's a lot of guys who just don't enjoy being with a woman anymore, just because they're so used to a certain level of intensity and a certain level of tightness. And it's just almost like you need to train this to get to this level. So I was like, okay, well, this was a completely different thing. We introduced this into our relationship. It completely changed things for us. I started something that I never had issues with sex before, but even at that level, things got amplified. So I had a healthy libido, I had a healthy sex drive, I had a healthy orgasm frequency, and it all got amplified either way. So finally, we were using the pandemic the way that I wanted us to use the pandemic. to just have a lot of sex. So it was great.
What else was there to do?
And what else is there to do? So it was fantastic. It was really, really good. And he actually was the one who gave me the idea of about like, you're young, but imagine a woman who's been married for many, many years, where the spark has gone in the relationship, perhaps, or a woman who doesn't feel sexy anymore, or a woman who's never enjoyed this, because you're enjoying this so much more now as well. So I was like, oh my God, but how do I even begin? And I found online a bunch of forums of women who were just as confused as I was when we were reading all these stories from women throughout history who were able to do this. And there were a lot of forums of women just asking, okay, but how do I do this? I get that I can Kegel, but how can I twist? Like, how is that even possible? So I just went to those forums and I was like, guys, I developed a program for this and it seems to be working really well. I'm happy to coach you guys for free and just be my guinea pigs on this. And that's how it got started. And we just started coaching women. Those women started telling other women, they started getting results, and they were like, okay, they brought their friends along. I started making Zoom calls and I just explained all the different exercises. And it got to a point where we started charging per session. I started having to hire other coaches, and the way that it started growing was from there, just through word of mouth. And eventually I realized that every time I brought a drawing to one of the sessions, because of all the muscles are inside of us, there's obviously not that much that we can show. So I was like, well, imagine this is the vagina, and I would just bring drawings and pictures, and I love to draw and I love to design, and I find that visual learning really works for me. Every time I did that, they understood the exercises that much faster. So I was like, okay, there's something here. So that's when the idea of the course, of the self-paced course, came in. But I had a friend of mine who's an animator, and I like to say he's the gay man with the most pictures of vaginas pasted on his wall, because he animated the entire course. I created the illustrations. He completely animated everything just to understand every single different move and how it works and how the vagina moves. And my biggest thing was, I wanted it to be something that a woman could train in her bedroom, and if a little kid walked in, the kid wouldn't be traumatized for life. Like, it needed to be not pornographic. It needed to be very pleasing to the eye, very pretty. And as you've seen the book has the same type of illustrations. They're all like colorful illustrations that could be anything. They're just like infographics, right? And that's how it got started. We started partnering up with sex toy companies, and just influencers started talking about it. We started a TikTok channel, which I hate to say that, but I'm a TikToker now, and that became really big. We started a Reddit community, and that became really big. So it just seems that there was a huge need for something like this, something that is completely natural, something that gives women a lot of agency, because that is the main thing that I have with this is, you have all the tools you need inside of you. You don't need anything else. You don't need any pills to feel tighter, any creams. There's the amount of stuff.
We're going to get to that online in a moment.
Oh, okay, great, fantastic.
So can I pause you for a moment?
Yes, please. I can keep going. So please pause me every time.
So, because you said a lot in there, it was all fantastic and great. And I just want to make sure that we come back to some of those things.
Sure. Please.
The initial question really was about like your personal journey and what led you there. And what you shared were two things. One was your personal journey, which was that you felt sex was good for you, but it wasn't working for your partner. And so you wanted to learn this to hopefully help him. But you also mentioned that a lot of the people who come to your trainings are the other way around. The sex isn't working for the women. Correct. And so they're trying to figure out a way to spark that. And what I really wanted to get across there was, sometimes people think that these things are just kind of like parlor tricks, and they're just like, just something like if you're really into sex and you want to learn something sort of outside the norm, like you could do this. And what I wanted people to understand from that segment was that this has actual therapeutic applications. In other words, if you are a woman and you're suffering from low libido, or there's a number of problems that can result from having, really out of shape pelvic floor muscles. This is something that could actually significantly improve the quality of your life. I mean, years ago, I was out with some friends. We were doing some training, and one of the guys that we were training with, his wife was there, and somebody was telling a funny joke, and she started laughing really hard. She made this comment that you've heard older women who have children make many times.
Right.
She's like, don't make me laugh so hard because I'll pee myself. And then, you know, everybody laughed. She's like, well, you know, when you're X number of years old and you've had kids, that's
normal.
just what happens. And I, of course, at that point, I already knew this. And I was like, no, it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it might be common, but it's not normal.
Exactly. So this idea that this can really help. And I love the fact that you also brought in that, you know, for men who are dealing with potentially low libido or not super interested in sex, that this could be something that could inspire and revitalize them also. So that was kind of the first thing I really wanted people to understand. Like, this isn't just a like, well, you know, I'm kind of bored and looking for something else to do. Like, yeah, that's fine. And you know, this has a whole lot of other potential applications as well. I also love the fact that you were sharing how you were experimenting, you know, in your own
experimental sex.
Because so that's actually where the name for this podcast came from, the Love Lab podcast, because my wife, when she was alive, she also taught this, you know, stuff around sex, love, and relationship. And we would use our own bedroom as our laboratory. Let's try this, you know? So a lot of what we taught came from our own experience in doing it. And one day we were literally laying there in bed afterwards and she said something and I was like, yeah, it's like our lab, our love lab or something like that. And that's literally where the title for this came from. We also once did an experiment based on this because she knew how to do this too. And the experiment was to just penetrate her. And she was just going to use her muscles and she wanted to see if she could give herself an orgasm without me moving at all.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yep. And it is possible. You need some good, you got to like really warm yourself up and get that energy.
That's actually one of the challenges in our community. It's a non-moving challenge. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Super fun. Okay. So we understand. Oh, one other point I wanted to make. You made this point also, and I just want to sort of reiterate it, which is this idea that like you used the example of your mouth and how you have all these different muscles in your mouth, which can make your mouth move in a bunch of different ways, right?
Correct.
So I kind of just want to reiterate that's what's happening inside the vagina too. And you know, if you're thinking that, oh, I'll never be able to do that, or that's too hard, or only certain people can do it. Like my wife was also a belly dancer. And I don't know if you've ever watched belly dancers, how they move, but like with their abs, they can make them roll and flutter and the different, you know, most people, when they squeeze their abs, everything just squeezes at once. Let me flex my abs and you just see them all. But belly dancers can control all the, they can control that six pack independently.
Exactly.
Because they took the time to train it. And you can do the same thing with your vagina. So.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. And a lot of the people in our community, one of the courses coming up, which I don't know if I should say it already, but it has to do with belly dancing as well and combining both things, because we have a lot of students who want to combine both belly dancing, because obviously the abs are part of the core and it also can enhance the sensation even further, et cetera, et cetera. So that's fascinating. And I love the example of the mouth. I started giving it recently because I started playing the trumpet. And when you start playing the trumpet, you kind of realize all the different muscles that are surrounding your mouth. Like there are a completely different set of muscles that are in charge of you smiling versus fake smiling. Like there are completely different sets of muscles that surround your mouth. So it's just, it really isn't more difficult than training any other muscle. It's just a skill. With practice, it comes. Absolutely.
You're going to have to write a second book on the Gohddess oral method.
Oh, God. You know, I've been asked this so many times, but I'm like, I feel like there is some, like, you have porn for that. You can just, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But maybe,
well, you know, I would slightly disagree with you on that, only because.
Please. I need a motivation.
Well, and we all, I think to some extent know this, but I had what was his title, was like the most famous male porn star of all time or something like that. I had him on the show like years ago. And what we were really talking about on that episode was that the sex you see in porn obviously is not real sex. In other words, so after he was a porn star. Then he got into directing porn, right? And so then he starts seeing this from the director's eye, like what makes a good shot, right? Like visually, what is fun and attractive and sexy and a turn on to look at. And one of the things that he confirmed, and I really wanted people to hear it from somebody like him, even though I've been saying it for years, which is that what looks good on camera, right, does not necessarily make for good sex. So like he was saying, he was using for himself, he was like, look, the way that I would give oral in a movie is not good oral sex for her. He's like, because good oral sex, you can't see anything. He's like, your face is buried in the vagina. You see nothing, right?
Correct.
He's like, but good oral sex on camera is like you're further away and you're sticking your tongue.
Right, your tongue needs to, on display. Exactly.
So I would say it's kind of the same thing with a really good blowjob. If you really know how to use your mouth in combination with your hands, it's probably not something you can see very well, but it's definitely something you can feel very well.
Well, there you go. Next course, next lesson. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of quick things before we dive a little deeper into the method itself. You were talking about how many women are showing up and looking for this type of things. And in our pre-interview call, we talked a little bit about this also. I wonder if we could just briefly talk about, from your experience, how many women actually experience issues with their pelvic floor muscles? And then also kind of like, what are the demographics of those women?
It's in terms of issues with their pelvic floor muscles, that is extremely common. That is one of the most common things as women age. And you touched on this briefly about, urinary incontinence. We talk about organ prolapse, all of these things that are like considered normal, which are definitely not normal, even if they're common after childbirth, through aging, because of, the lack of laxity. And then with all of those changes and with the hormonal changes, we experience other things. So that's when, a weak pelvic floor is not just capable of causing, urinary incontinence, organ prolapse. It can lead to vaginal laxity. And that's what really means when you don't really feel much down there, when you don't really feel penetration as much. And then with the loss of collagen, that gets even enhanced. And that's something that does happen. But the part that I always like to tell women is the one thing we don't lose as we age, if anything, some women as they age, they're prone to be able to do this even better than when they were younger, is our ability to build a muscle. You can still build the deeper layer, which is the muscle layer, and that's going to create that friction, that sensation, those muscle fibers, and those sensory receptors that you really have, and that's what you really want to work on. And so when women come to us, the biggest concern by far is that they don't enjoy penetration. That is the number one thing that people come to us for. I don't enjoy penetration is number one. I don't feel like I like sex, that I don't enjoy it, and therefore I don't have a high libido. It's number two. And then they have just lack of orgasms, just lack of arousal. But penetration is a big one. And I feel like there's sort of, in the sex industry, in the sex space, we kind of raised the flag of the clitoris. And I think it's great, we're all fans of the clitoris here, and I will never say a bad word about the clitoris. But it's almost like we completely ignored the part that is inside the vagina. It's almost like as an industry, we were like, just focus on the clitoris, and you see this in movies, you see this in media, like everything is important, is up top, it's on the other side, just focus on that, it doesn't really matter, what comes next is for you, but what I really like is for you to go down on me and touch my clit and all of that. And that is kind of what we've all been hearing.
And
how
what's
men can even
crazy about that is they don't even understand what the structure of the clitoris is. They think it's just that little part you see sticking outside. So they're not even focusing completely on the clitoris. They're just focusing on one small part of the clitoris.
Correct. Many experts, what they believe is that what we call the cheese part inside the vagina is actually where the two clitoris halves meet. So it's actually still part of the clitoris, just the internal side. And that is the part where we focus on with vaginal gymnastics. So that is the biggest concern. He likes penetration, but I don't like it. So how can I make it fun for me and not just something where it's this guy just, humping me and I'm just not even there. thinking about groceries. So that is the main thing that we focus on. And that's what I would say is the biggest concern that people come to us with.
Okay, so we know that it's common. And I kind of wanted people to hear that from you. I mean, I see it a lot in the work that I do too, but we work in the industry, so therefore we see it a lot,
Correct.
you know.
Correct.
But I wanted people to understand that it's not just because we happen to work in the industry and we tend to coach a lot of people around these things. Like, this is a major issue in society as a whole. I'm curious too, you know, demographic wise, like, you've taught a lot of workshops, right? You've worked with a lot of people. What are the age ranges of women that come to learn this?
That is the hardest question for me to answer, because it's honestly all over. I've tried doing this study so many times, and it comes out with such an even split between women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s, that it's like, it's not enough of a difference with any demographic that I can say, okay, let's focus on women in their 40s. Let's focus on women in their 60s, because it's almost like every demographic comes to us for a different reason. Like, maybe when they're a little bit younger, they'll be like, oh, this sounds cool. Let's try it out. Let's see, let's just even from a more innocent sometimes perspective of like, oh, I kind of want to be able to do this. That sounds great. And then maybe in their 30s, they're like, yo, I've been having sex for a while and I don't enjoy penetration. What's going on? And then maybe in their 40s, it's like, I really want to rekindle the relationship with my husband. I really want this to be something that we can do together. And maybe in their 50s and 60s is more, I used to have a really high libido. How can I get it back? So I would say that the reasons definitely change between demographics, but the amount of people that come to us are pretty spread evenly throughout, which I find fascinating, and also very complicated when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, I was going to make that comment. So I'm not at all surprised to hear that it's fairly even across the board. And I was going to make that same joke. I was going to say, from a marketing perspective, that's difficult. However, it also does mean that you have a very big market that you can reach. And I'll tell you, I see a very similar thing. So I read an ad at the beginning of this show for powermastery.com, which are my online men's courses. And what's really interesting, when I look at my demographics for men, because I'm teaching men how to last longer, right? I'm teaching them how to be able to get erections when they're experiencing erectile dysfunction, things like that. I see, like you said, an extremely consistent number from about 25 to 50. So it tapers off before 25 and it tapers off after about 50, 55. But that whole core segment in the middle, even for erectile dysfunction, and this is something my wife had been working with men with erectile dysfunction for many, many years. And when she first started doing that work, she was primarily seeing men like, over 40 for sure, more like 50s and 60s. And over the years, the ages got younger and younger and younger, to the point where she was having literally men, barely men, 20s, in their mid 20s, coming to her with erectile dysfunction. And so I'm not surprised to see that women are having similar challenges in their lives.
There's a whole conversation on this, because we can go so deep into a rabbit hole of what's going on with the youths. But it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
We might need to do a whole, let's make a note of that, because I want to have that conversation. We just don't have time for it today.
Let's go.
But yeah, we're going to talk after the show about that. Okay, so I think we did a pretty good job of talking generally about what it is, why you would want to do it, who is experiencing these issues, and that sort of thing. I want to take a short break. And when I come back, I want to talk about what other solutions are out there, why they're not necessarily the right solutions, and then compare and contrast this solution, and then talk a little bit more about how they can get started on this. So that's what I want to do when we come back.
Love it.
All right. Are you a couple? Are your relationship and sex life where you want them to be? Are there changes you would like to make, but just don't know how? Maybe you think there's nothing that can be done. If you are not 100% happy with where your relationship or sex life is, then get help today and change your life. Go to kevinandceline.com/sex-coaching-couples. Don't worry about the long link. Just click on it. It's in the description. It's going to change soon anyway, and I'm going to make it really, really easy for you coming up soon. So don't worry about that. and schedule a strategy call with me today so we can map out a strategy to get you where you want it to go so you can have it all your way. That's kevinandceline.com/sex-coaching-couples and book your strategy call today. We work on a lot of this kind of stuff. Like, Belle's whole story was what was going on with her and her partner, and how they were seeking tools in order to fix the areas of their sex life that weren't working. And I do a lot of that with couples. And that's really what this ad is about. Of course, we can't always just work with your sex life because there's dynamics that happen in your relationship that also need to be addressed. And so we take care of all of that in that coaching program. Okay. So let's get back to the topic at hand. I know that there are a whole bunch of other solutions out there that claim to do the same thing that this does. And I say claim because, like most things that seem to be the simple, easy solution, just swallow a pill or just put this cream on or whatever, they almost never work. And I'm pretty sure that that's the same case here. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the other things that are out there, whether or not they work and how they compare to this.
Ding, ding, ding. The way we do one thing is the way we do everything, right, as a society. And I relate this to getting fit a lot, because it makes so much intuitive sense to compare the two, because just like there are, diet pills, and just like there are, the cellulite creams and all of that, and everything under the quick fixes umbrella before actually, work on your diet and exercise. The same is true for this sort of issues. Women have vaginal tightening creams and vaginal tightening pills and gels and lasers that are not FDA approved. Some at-home lasers, which are the amount of concerns that actual doctors have on them is insane. There's a woman who's been burned for, there's just insane amount of stuff. The cheapest ones that you will find, you will find the creams and the pills, and what they do is generally they just dry you out. So it's not that you experience any actual tightness, it's just that you're just not wet. So it feels like you're tighter, but really it doesn't. You're not going to enjoy sex at all. You're just going to feel completely dry, and nobody's going to be enjoying sex at that point.
Ask any woman what is the number one thing required for decent penetration, and that's wetness.
Yep. But that's what they can sell for, I don't know, $12, I guess. And then you have on the opposite side of that spectrum, you have, again, some surgeries that are laser focused, and the idea of these surgeries is that they will create these micro tears in your muscles, in your vaginal muscles, sort of with a laser inside of you, and then the muscles will repair stronger. Again, there are a lot of FDA concerns on this. A lot of these are not approved, and I would never. And besides, they're extremely expensive. And then you have complete vaginal rejuvenation, vaginal reconstruction surgery, and that is, needles. That's completely surgical. That's a complete reconstruction of your vagina. Can't even
imagine the amount of scar tissue that would create, and then all the problems that would create.
Yeah. It's a lot. And I had a few women come to us before surgery, and they were like, "Look, nothing has worked. I don't know what to do. Is there any chance that this could work for me?" And in fact, I work with women's doctors hand in hand to be like, okay, let's design a program for this woman specifically, to make sure that she can do this. When the doctor is good and they don't actually want this woman to undergo surgery, generally it's fantastic. When there's different intentions, it doesn't go that well. But what we've done is, okay, before you spend all of these thousands and thousands of dollars in a surgery that you can't possibly take back, try to work with what you have. And I know it, starting a routine and, doing 20 minutes in the morning, every single morning at the beginning is a little bit tedious and you don't want to do it. But the way that we've done it is in such a gamified way, with a community, with the different games. We even have like musical workouts that you can follow along with your favorite song and do like a Guitar Hero of vaginas. Like, we've done so many different things. No, it's insane. When we did, by the way, just that week, we had an entire month working on that. And that last week of just going into our office with my animator and seeing all of these animations of vaginal gymnastics, Guitar Hero choreographies, I was like, I cannot believe this is my life. If you would have told 17-year-old virgin Catholic belle in Argentina that she would be doing this. There's no way. It's insane. But anyway, it's different ways that we can make this fun, and we can make this just like we have different classes at the gym. Not everyone goes to the gym and does the same thing. Some people enjoy Zumba, some people enjoy classes, some people do spinning, some people like lifting. Okay, let's do a proper gym for your vagina, and you can pick the class that you want, but you can make it fun for yourself. And that's what we continuously work on, to make it really fun for people so that they can stick with it, because when they stick with it, everything gets better. And to this point, every time we've helped someone who was considering surgery, every single time they have not undergone surgery in the end, because the human body is amazing. And we have a lot more agency than the medical industry sometimes, or big pharma might want us to believe, which I can get my tinfoil hat on if you want, but I'll just leave it at that. I think.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's funny because from the other end of the spectrum, we have women in our course who are like, I really want to tell everyone about this, but also I don't want every woman to know about this. I want to be the one who knows this. And I always tell them, look, everyone has access to the gym. Everyone knows that you need to eat less calories than you expend if you want to lose weight. Everyone knows all of this. And yet not everyone has a six-pack. So just because their knowledge is out there, it still doesn't mean that everyone's going to put in the work to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I try to sell it for people who are like, I don't want everyone else to know this. Let's be generous with this knowledge.
Those women are just afraid that if other women know it, they might steal their man. But this is where the whole other range of skills that I was just talking about in my ad that I read come in, right? You can have the most talented pussy in the world, but if you're a bitch, nobody's gonna want it. All right. So that's the reality.
I don't know how some women have used it for evil. A lot of them have.
Right. So you got to have both. Don't worry about it. First of all, what you said is absolutely right. There's all the knowledge in the world is out there about how to be healthy and eat right and look good, and yet we still have a massive problem with obesity and people being out of shape and unhealthy and disease and all of that. So don't worry about it. Plus, it's not an issue. In fact, teach it to all your girlfriends. Don't worry about it. They're not going to try to steal your man with their vaginas. If you are showing up in your relationship the way that you should be, all will be fine.
It's great. What I love about this is how every woman, just like I said, that many women came from different situations. I love how every woman has made the training their own. Like a lot of women, we've had women who came from traumatic situations where they didn't feel like they had a lot of control during a sexual experience. And through this, they found this sort of empowerment of like, oh, I can actually do something during sex. I don't feel like I have to just lay there and take it, quote unquote. So I can actually just do all of these things and feel really pleasurable and kind of take hold of my own pleasure, because a lot of women use it just to masturbate. Actually, they don't even use it with a man. They can just use it for themselves, just to get it on. And then we have women on the other side of the spectrum who are like, I feel really masculine during my day. The last thing I want is to feel masculine during the bedroom. But when I do this, I feel like I'm sort of like serving him in a way, and he really enjoys it. And then he becomes like a man. And like it's so many different ways to alchemize the same kind of knowledge, which I really, really love to see. When I read these comments, I'm like, these are completely different interpretations of the same thing, which I love.
And you hit on something that I talk about on this show a lot when you were describing the first case, which was the women who then, once they learned this, felt empowered and realized that they could actually do something during sex and like maybe control or steer how it's going. And it's a really interesting thing, because one of the things I've been saying for years when it comes to for lack of a better term, sort of sexual power, I say all the time, women are by far the more powerful sexual beings than men are. They are. They just absolutely are. Their ability, they can just have orgasms forever. Orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. I mean, they could literally just, all right, next, right? Wear out man after man if they wanted to, right?
Yes.
Their ability to take a man over into ejaculation pretty much anytime they want is just there. So like, and this is a big part I have to teach men too, is like, yes, I'm teaching you some skills that will really help you, that you have control over. But if you're still finding it really hard, we got to look at your partner and see what she's doing as well, right? Because she has a big impact on this, right? And so this idea that somehow women are passive in sex and don't really have control over it or power, you have the ultimate control. First of all, you're the gatekeepers of sex. Yeah. No sex happens unless you say so, right? Correct. I mean, that's the reality, right?
Correct.
And then, of course, the just sheer sexual power and energy contained within you is pretty much insatiable and unstoppable. Whereas we men, no matter how good we are, we will reach a point at some point where we're like, okay, that's it.
I love that. Two things on this. First, back to the clitoris versus vagina, which I don't even like to call it like it's a competition. But funny enough, when it comes to female orgasm, generally a clitoral orgasm can be so intense that you're like, okay, that's enough. Whereas with the vaginal orgasm, generally a woman can get going and going and going, and generally one sparkles a lot more. So it's almost like the opposite effect. You're not done. It's more like, I want another one. Let's keep going. Let's stay in this high, which obviously gets intensified once you have really sensitive and very pleasurable and very dexterous muscles, obviously. And the other thing that I was going to say, you spoke about I just missed it. What were we speaking about? I just missed the second point we were talking about. Oh, the in terms of the power that women have, we've had women develop a specific skill of the program called locking, where you develop such strength that you are able to lock a man inside of you, not allow him to pull away from you. And when you get really strong at this and very dexterous, you can essentially control his orgasm. You can essentially say when you will allow him to kind of, you can edge him, if you will, through your muscles, and you can elongate that orgasm as much as you want. And you can even, some women use it in form of sort of like sexual domination, sort of like teasing, sort of like foreplay, sort of like a little bit in between. And the women who are really, really, really into this technique, they will even use part of their abs. They just become really, really specifically good at this one skill. It's just insane, the level of control that you can develop. It's just, yeah, I've been asked a lot of the times by the partners of our students if there was a male version of this, and I'm like, I would never speak on equipment that I do not possess, so I cannot. If there is, it wouldn't be mine. I wouldn't be the one doing this course, but I don't think I can't imagine that level of dexterity. I just don't think it would be possible, just because of the anatomy of the vagina surrounded by so many muscle fibers.
Yeah. So when it comes to the male penis, there are no muscles in the penis at all. They're just chambers that fill up with
correct
blood.
The muscles are attached to you, and then you have the
yeah. Now there is a ligament there, a suspensory ligament, which sometimes that's actually one of the methods for trying to enlarge your penis, is they cut that suspensory ligament so the penis hangs further down. It makes it appear bigger, even though it's not really any bigger. It's a terrible procedure, should never be done, but still people do them. So yeah, there's the only muscles that we have control of when it comes to our penis are our pelvic floor muscles. And those we can train, and that is the key to lasting longer and being able to control your ejaculation. So learning to train those muscles and how to use them. And it's an interesting thing when teaching men this, because based on what I just said, you might make the assumption that you just got to make them really strong so that you can just lock them down, and that's how you actually prevent ejaculation. But that's not necessarily the case. The master skill in there is making them strong enough and knowing when to lock them and when to relax them. Because if you're in constant tension all the time, you actually can trigger an ejaculation. So correct, you got to learn the skill mastering between the two of them.
Exactly. And there's different types of well, obviously this will then depend on the partner, but there's different types of movements, because some stimulation is and also at the moment of sex, if this man is really, really stimulated and he's also very sensitive, and it's been going on for a while, you probably don't want to do something as sensitive as this. But it depends on the specific moment of sex, the partner that you have, how stimulated he is, when was the last time he ejaculated, all of this, and the specific movement that you're doing, because some sort of contractions can be more, there are some skills that are more preventative in nature, or almost like engineered, and then you have some skills that are very much friction based. So it's just such an array of sensations that you can create, that then you just try them all, you test them all, and then you experiment in your own love lab what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how there's so many different uses. Like what you're describing is, you can be using it to stimulate your own libido. You can be using it to
Correct.
increase your own pleasure. You can be using it to potentially help him last longer. You could be using it to potentially help him have a more intense orgasm. So there's all these different things you could potentially be using it for. Okay, we only have a few minutes left of the show. So I'm wondering if you can let the listeners know if there's any ladies who are listening to this and they're like, this sounds amazing. Okay, you've sold me on it. I want to learn this. How does one get started? Like, what should they do?
Well, we have a ton of, my goal on this is, more than anything, is I want everyone to have access to this knowledge, because again, we've seen just how it changes people's lives from all different angles. So I have a lot of free resources on our website. I have a free guide that they can download and they can get started working on this. So if you just go to www.gohddess.com, that's with an H after the O, so gohddess.com, you can find everything. You will find a book that we have that I released earlier this year. That's our best-selling book on the method, which is more basically your Bible on vaginal gymnastics, how the muscles work, a bit about my story, other stories from women all over the world, how you can put together your own training. And that's fantastic for anyone who's more of a do-it-yourself kind of person. And it's like, okay, I just want to learn the science behind all of this and how I can put together every single skill out there and even develop my own. And that is your Bible. And I recommend you have it. And if you can get it on paperback, even better, because I have all the images, all the illustrations, etc. Or you can get the program. And the program really is, it's a one-time fee and it's lifetime access with all the updates and all the lessons. And I say, this is what we do on Monday. This is what we do on Tuesday. This is what we do on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Follow along with all the animations. And also different ways of training to make it fun. For example, choreographies, for example, different techniques, how you can try them out in the bedroom, access to a community, access to me. And that is basically our hub for our program. But then also, if you want some free resources, I have blogs and I have articles and I have all of these podcasts that I've done, because that is my main goal right now, clearly in life is, okay, I found something that is amazing. I just want to get it out there. And the second biggest goal or a component of that is getting it approved by the research community. And that's a big thing that I want to do. I want to put forward research on this and see, hey, how dexterous are these muscles really? And how can we test this? And how can we prove this? And how can we run research and investigate on how this works? So that's what we're working on right now, because I'm really excited on the science part of it.
Awesome. So obviously they can get the book. They can also join your online programs. Are you still doing in-person workshops that people can go to?
We've been asked about that a few times. I think at this point I should just organize one and do it in person. You've given me so many ideas today. I think I just should write down everything that you've told me and be like, you know what? Yep, these are all great. These are all great.
I think Buenos Aires is a beautiful place. Maybe you can pull some people in and they can do a week-long retreat with you in Buenos Aires.
Well, that is really beautiful. Where else would you do it? Well, you're in San Diego. I could go to San Diego. I could do something there.
San Diego is a great place for people to come.
I've heard Austin has all sort of these things as well, and I always wanted to go to Austin. So there's just so many places I should go, and I should do a proper tour.
If you're interested in coming to San Diego, let me know. I can definitely connect you with some people who can help facilitate that and make it happen.
That's fantastic. I love that.
All right. Any last advice for women or even couples around learning this, and why and when and how and all that?
The biggest takeaway I think that I want people to get from this is, it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter whether you've had many children, whether you've had no children, whether you've had problems with incontinence, whether you've had problems with weight or age. It doesn't really matter. Every woman, unless it's a completely specific illness, every woman is capable of doing this. and you have a lot more agency over your pleasure, over your confidence, over your libido than we are meant to believe. And I think, yeah, these muscles are not that dissimilar to any other muscle. And the way that we're really motivated to go and work out and work our legs and work our lungs and work our core and do all of these things for us, it just baffles me that our enjoyment and our pleasure and our sex is not something that we're actively optimizing for. So you definitely can, and you definitely have that agency. So that is the main thing that I want people to take from it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that is definitely something I have spent a career trying to help people understand also.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're out there doing this work and helping women, which of course, you know, if you help women and women show up more satiated, pleased, happy in a relationship, then, you know, the relationship as a whole is going to be better. When the relationship as a whole is better, the men are better when they go out into the world, and that makes the whole world better.
Yes, please. For more orgasms, less wars. Yes.
Yes. All right.
I love it.
I love that. More orgasms, less wars. All right. I'm going to make a t-shirt out of that. I'll give you credit for it.
Please, go ahead. No, don't give me credit. I love it. Just use it. Thank you for this platform, Kev. What you're doing is amazing work. This is what we need. We need more of these conversations. I love it.
I totally agree. You are welcome. And thanks so much for what you've created and what you're putting out there in the world, and for coming on the show to share about it.
Thank you. Amazing. My pleasure.
All right, everybody. That's all the time that I have for this episode, and I will see you next week. I hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoyed this show, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. And for more free exclusive content, join me in the Passion Vault at kevinandceline.com/vault. That's kevinandceline.com/vault. Thanks for listening. And remember, as Celine used to say, you're amazing.